Hello everyone, and welcome again to the Peter Purves Podcast. Previously, I've known all my guests quite well, but in today's case, I've known him only from what I've seen on television. He's one of the most familiar faces on daytime television antique shows, appearing as host, expert, auctioneer, and on his several road trip weeks, he's always seemed to win most comfortably. You may also have seen him on the excellent Four Rooms, where experts vie to purchase the many exotic items that are often worth thousands of pounds. But it was his hilarious performance, where he almost lost his shirt on Would I Lie to You, that made me want to meet and talk to him. All will be revealed as I speak to Raj Bisram. Hello, Raj. Nice to see you. You know, this is really quite weird because when I do these podcasts, I'm normally talking to people I know very well. I've never met you, and yet I feel I know you extremely well. You are one of those faces that has become very dominant in daytime television. You're never off the screen, it seems.
It's hard to believe as well. Coming from me, that I didn't expect this to happen either. So it's a bit of a shock to me as well.
Well, I was fascinated to find that you are not only an antiques genius, but you have a tremendous load of very interesting background stories. And I'm going to start fairly young with you because you grew up in London and I believe you went to Highgate School. Is that right?
I did, yes. I was brought up in North London. My parents came over here in the 50s. I was born in North Middlesex Hospital. And, I spent most of my young age in North London, really, and thoroughly enjoyed it. I enjoyed school life. It was a nice atmosphere. It was a time when we played out in the streets and, you could play out and friends, your parents sort of let you run around, do whatever you wanted, and you came back and it was a much freer time than children have today.
Oh, it's a much safer world. I mean, I'm considerably older than you, and I remember it being even simpler and more straightforward. But there are many good things about the modern world, but it is rather a frightening place at the moment, I think.
Well, one of the good things is, Peter, that we're able to do this.
Exactly. Well, it's great to see you. What inspired you at school? Because I know that the antique area became very interesting to you at a very early age. What inspired that? How did you get into it?
Well, I lived at the bottom of Muswell Hill, and Highgate. I had to walk to school, right? And it was a nice walk. We walked through the Queenswood, and I had to cross the Archway Road. And I started going to school pretty young, and on the Archway Road, as I crossed over, there was a pawnbroker's. And I was fascinated. I was absolutely fascinated. So I kept looking in the window. Every time I went past, I would look in the window. And there was something that caught my eye in there one day. And I just looked at it and I kept looking at it. And obviously I couldn't afford it. I was a 10-year-old, I only had pocket money. But I decided that I can't remember exactly how much it was, but it was pennies, and it was a little old Sainsbury's clay potted jar. And it just fascinated me. And it had Sainsbury's written on it. And so I saved up my pocket money and I went in and I bought it. And it's the first thing that I ever bought. It's something that I still have today. It's one of the only things I have from that age. And it set me on the road. Obviously, I didn't know where it was going to lead, but it was my fascination with old things that got me really going and excited. But of course, as you move through life, things change. But that fascination with antiques never left me, not to this day. I think I'm as passionate about antiques now as I've ever been, because I guess the older you get, the more you realize you don't know. And so you want to cram it all in. And I can't go to a shop and not have my eyes rolling around, trying to take everything in. I still find it fascinating. Was your eye very good at that time? Is what you got, that very first thing, is it valuable? No. Absolutely not. Absolutely not. I mean, I must have paid pennies for it now. It's probably worth 50 pence now, Peter. So,
wow.
as far as investing was concerned, no, that wasn't the aim, or that even didn't come into my psyche at all.
It wasn't the first thing that you went into when you left school. You joined the army.
I did, yeah. I mean, at school, when I was at school, I was an athlete. I was good at sport. I did lots of different sports, etc., prominent as a runner. Middle distance runner. I ran for the school, I ran for Haringey, the borough, I ran for Middlesex, the county, and I ran in the All England Championships.
Wow.
And at that time, I was setting records, and I was really into sport. And funny enough, yesterday, I met up with somebody that I hadn't seen for over 50 years, right? He contacted me, and he was a guy I was at school with. And it's a bit of a funny story. We were at school together and we competed. He was a year above me, but we always competed in the same races. And one time he would beat me and then I would beat him, and we represented the school again and the borough and the county, and we ran in these different championships together from the same school, which was quite unusual that we were both picked to represent all these different teams. And we always had this rivalry. His name was Axel Salander, and he was a German. And I left school and went on my way, and that was the end of the story as far as I was concerned, until I got married and came back to the UK, and I was sitting down on the sofa watching the Summer Olympics, and the 400 meters hurdles was coming on, and who was representing Germany but Axel Salander? And I said to my wife, I used to run against this guy, all the time. There he is, fantastic. He's representing his country in the 400 meters hurdles. And again, that was the end of the story, until about 4 weeks ago when he phoned me. And he got my number and he said, Raj, I'm coming to England. I've heard so much about you and your career, etc., and I'd love to meet up again with you. And yesterday we had lunch together.
Oh,
and it was absolutely fascinating. And another school story is because we had a master at school. Masters are very influential at school. If you get on with a master, he helps you and promotes you and encourages you. Yeah. And we both the two of us had an athletics master called Howard Darban, and he was a lovely, lovely man. And again, he encouraged me. He helped me through my athletics career and sports. And again, he contacted me after, many, 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 many years, and said that he had followed my career. And we went out for lunch. He took me to lunch at the Long Room at Lord's. And, I had never been to the Long Room at Lord's. So that was fascinating as well. And to see him and the stories that he had told, because and one story at school was because we had this new swimming pool built, indoor swimming pool. And, our class was the chosen one to enter the swimming pool first. And so the rest of the school went down there. They all were sitting in the gallery, and, because our class was very sporty and I was like really sporty, I wanted to be the first one in. So when our class went into the change rooms, I literally got rid of everything, got my swimming trunks on, and I ran through the splash pool. And what had happened, all I could do is see the swimming pool. So I ran towards it, but there was a glass door, and I ran through the glass door, and I was shredded. I was absolutely shredded and bleeding. And he reminded me, I knew that this had happened to me, obviously, but I didn't remember what happened after that. And he was the master that picked me up and carried me and took me to the hospital to have me stitched up. And he said it was quite ironic, Raj, that, you wanting to be the first person in the swimming pool, you ended up being the last person in the school because of your injuries, So it was quite ironic. But he was a lovely man, encouraged me a lot. And he's one of the good things, that I remember from being at Highgate.
It's interesting what you say about how you follow the particular teachers. I was a swimmer, and I swam for the school and in the inter-school sports and things like that. And I was in the team for 4 years, I started when I was 15, and when I was 18, that was the end of it. I was the captain at the end of it.
So the feeling.
Yeah, but the problem was that because I liked the swimming master, I took chemistry, which he's taught, and I was terrible at chemistry. So I didn't get my A levels, even though I went with him. And it's been my one regret about school is I took sciences when I would have much preferred to have to have done history, geography, economics, something like that. But I didn't like those teachers, and you choose for possibly the wrong reasons. Not that it would have made any difference to my life. I was always going to be an actor, but there we go.
Yeah. I mean, again, I think at that age, do you really know how they've influenced you? It's not till later on in life that you actually realize the good, the bad, and how it's affected you and how you feel now towards them. Because there are some masters at school I wouldn't give the light a day to, I mean, so, but it's nice to be able, what's been so nice is because of the fact that I'm on TV, people are able to contact me. And so many people, from the army days, when I was in the army, from school, from all of my different jobs that I've done, people from the past have been able to connect with me. And that's been it's been a blessing. It's been a really lovely thing to happen.
Well, I can imagine. Going back to the military and joining that, obviously that was a good area for you to get into because, once you're in the army, there are all sorts of sport elements that you can do. So that would have suited you down to the ground. Once you got over your initial square bashing and training, off you went.
Well, absolutely. I mean, when I left school, I had the choice I was offered a scholarship to the University of Miami as an athlete, but I was scared of going abroad. I'd actually never been abroad, and I was really concerned about going abroad. It was one of those things I just didn't want to go abroad. And so I joined the army, and I can remember the staff sergeant that signed me up said, "Are you sure you want to do this?" Because in those days, being an Asian boy, and I was quite a skinny little thing, joining the army, he said, "You will come up against, you'll find it hard." And I said, what will be, will be. But they also said that as a sportsman, that a lot of avenues would be open to you. And that's true. I mean, those 4 years in the army shaped me for the rest of my life, virtually for things that I wanted to do. I thoroughly had it was hard in the army for me. It was definitely hard. But I became a PTI, physical training instructor. So I was able to work in the gym. And what happens is once you're in the army, as a PTI, they try to get their instructors to learn as many different sports that they don't know about as possible. And so I was offered an exercise called Exercise Snow Queen, which meant that I would be sent to Bavaria. By this time, I'd got over my fear of being abroad because I was actually
just as well.
Yeah, because I remember the list going up of where you were going to go. And I kept saying to my CO, please keep me in Britain, please keep me in Britain, and yeah, he did. He kept me in the UK. But my unit that I was sent to was then posted, the whole lot of us were posted to Germany, to Verden in the north of Germany. By this time, though, and once I got there, I loved it. I mean, once I got abroad and met different people, I found it fascinating. And, I just wanted to be out there all the time. It was, so my fear of going abroad had completely gone in such a great way as well. So they sent me to Bavaria on this exercise for 2 weeks. And at the end of the 2 weeks, my instructor down there said to my CO, "He's got a bit of talent. Can we keep him?" And they ended up keeping me 3 months. And by the end of that time, I was sort of like junior racing standard. Then I became the next year senior racing standard. And then I just had a passion for skiing. I'd never done it before. And I just took to it. I mean, I feel just as happy on a mountain slope as I do driving a car. I just started so late, but I still wanted to catch up. So I left the army sort of to turn professional, really. I wanted to join the British squad. I'd done that pretty much enough, but unfortunately, and this is where things got a little bit ropey, because I went to visit the British Ski Federation and they just basically said no. So I had to go on my own. And that's when I kind of decided I was offered a job. I became the road manager to the World Aerial Stunt Team.
I saw you in a roadie and I thought, I didn't know he was heavily into music, but it was
yeah, for a skiing team. Well, they used to be, I mean, a lot of people might remember them in the old days as being the Peter Stuyvesant Ski Fantasia, and they used to perform at Earl's Court. And they were skiers that we had a ramp, a plastic ramp, and they would do somersaults and land on a huge airbed. And later on, they became a team called Flying Skis. I was asked to be the road manager to them. It was a great opportunity. I met lots of world champions, still see some of them. And it was a very exciting time. We traveled around the country doing all the county shows, but we were stationed in Blackpool. We did the summer season of Blackpool Rugby Ground.
I was going to say, there aren't a lot of hills in Blackpool.
There's not a lot of hills. No, you have to
extremely flat.
You have to make your own hills. You have to make your own hills. We had this huge ramp that was built by us from a company in London. And we had sponsors, Make Children Happy, all sorts of caravan companies, car companies, etc. And we were there booked for the summer season to do 2 shows a day. And what happened after we'd started, about a week or 2 weeks into the season, there was a heavy gale one night and the ramp blew down. And we're talking about huge construction. This was a huge thing and it just blew down. So all the things that we've been signed up to do, we couldn't do, right? You know, we've been signed up for the Royal Norfolk show, the Kent County, all these different county shows around the country. And so the manager phoned them up and said, look, and they said, well, can you come up with something else? So we did. We came up with a stunt using grass skis. And I don't know if you know what grass skis are.
Oh, yes, I did. I did a film on grass skiing when I was in Blue Peter, believe it or not.
Yeah, I'm sure there's nothing that I'm going to be able to say that you don't know because, you know,
oh, no.
the job that you've been doing, Peter, for years. I mean, you must have seen
lots of things I don't know, I promise.
No, well, yeah, but I mean, there's a lot of things. And that's one of the lovely things about, and I've digressed slightly, but this is one of the lovely things about antique shows that I've done is I get to do unusual things that I've never done before and go to places that I didn't know existed. And that just brings a smile to your face as well. A few weeks ago, I was feeding a brown bear.
Yes.
You know,
well, I certainly haven't done that.
You know, Raj feeding a brown bear, no chance. You know, the week before I was putting out a fire on a boat. It was just all these kind of things that we've done. And I'm sure you've done thousands of them. They just make life that little bit more exciting.
It sounds like you would have made the perfect Blue Peter presenter.
I think so.
Yeah, it is amazing when you get the luck to be able to be in a position of doing that kind of work. I mean, Blue Peter was amazing for me because I've been dropped into the best bits of other people's jobs. I mean, I went skiing 3 times. I was a terrible skier. You'd have been embarrassed to be on the same slope as me. But I was quite happy to try it because we had to get the film in the can. So, you know, if I fell over, I fell over. That bit would be cut out. We'd eventually get a reasonable run down a slope. I won't call it a hillside. But I mean, you were a serious professional at that. You raced, you did downhill and you did slalom.
I did, yeah. I did anything anyone would give me any money for to do, really, at one time. But to be able to do that, I had to, you know, I worked in the resort. So I worked for Thompson Holidays as a tour guide, you know, as a rep basically. And I had 2 jobs because I also wanted to become a qualified Austrian ski instructor because that was another form of income and I'd be able to keep skiing. So I remember again, this actually happened. I remember going, when I got there, I went up, the people in Elmau, 90% of the people in the village had never seen a brown face in their life. I had kids coming up to me, touching me, right? And it was unbelievable, but they were always a bit cautious as well. So I remember going to the head of the ski school. His name was Friedel Fuchs. He was an ex-Austrian racer. And I said, I'd like to do my Austrian papers. And he said, well, can you ski? And I said, yeah, I can ski. He said, there's lots of things that go into being an Austrian ski instructor. You've got to learn the language. You've got to do this. You've got to do that. And he said, but if you want, you can come to the first training session of the season. We're going to go up on the vernacular. And I turned up there and there was about 50 other instructors and all Austrians. And no one spoke to me. It was really daunting. And in those days, you could tell how good a skier was by the length of his skis, right? That was the thing, right? The longer the skis that you had, they would look at you and think, you know, oh, he can ski or he can't ski or what's he doing with those? And we were and I skied recreationally on 205s, which were quite long because I spoke a bit of German, but they didn't know that I could. And they were saying, you know, you can't handle those, you know, what's he doing here? This is a joke, right? Okay, sort of thing. Anyway, we got to the top of the mountain and I was nervous as hell. And so I just I stayed right at the back. I felt safe there. And I just followed them down, zigzagging. The head instructor was at the front. And we got halfway down And Friedel stopped and he said to me, he pointed to me and said, come down. And he wanted me to ski behind him. And I had to ski behind him all the way down to the bottom with all the other instructors behind me looking at me. And when I got to the bottom, they came up to me and they started shaking my hands. And my whole experience in the village for the many years I was there, I still go back every year. I was given the freedom of the town, an amazing honor. And I met my wife there as well. So it's a very special place. And that was, you've been married 42 years. That's where we met. When we came back to the UK, I am slightly digressing because these stories are reminding me of different things. But when we left Elmau, I didn't go back for 25 years because, it was 25 years. I'd skied all over the world and I'd had this thing. I wanted to ski in as many different places around resorts as I could in my time. And of course, bringing up kids as well. The money wasn't there. So I wasn't able to ski. I was being paid for it. So it was a very different thing. But I skied every year virtually. After 25 years of me leaving Elmau, I got a phone call from somebody from the Austrian ministry saying that they wanted to recognize that I was the first British Asian ski instructor qualified, and they wanted to celebrate it. And they wanted to invite me, my wife, my kids back to Elmau for a week. So we had a week long of parties. And my daughters, got to speak to guys who had known me when I was an instructor, and they were telling my girls stories, and it was just to watch was just beautiful. It was, and I walked into the bar, right, after 25 years, right, after we checked into the hotel, we walked to the bar where we met, right, and I walked in, and the two brothers who were running it 25 years before were still there, and they couldn't believe it when I walked in. And it was just, they were on the phone, phoning people up. And when I was there, one of the things that I taught them to do was how to make a chili con carne, which they had never done. And to this day, they've said, it's been on the menu. There's not a day goes by in 25 years that the chili con carne hasn't been on the menu. And it was just, it was just lovely to go back.
What do they call it? Do they name it after?
They call it chili con carne. No, they don't call it Raj's chili.
Let's move on a little bit to, well, the many other things that you have done. You're a bit of a gambler. You're not a bad, I would say,
true.
Poker player.
No,
these are things that scare me. I have played poker and I have played bridge. I like bridge.
I'm a bridge player.
Bridge for the way I played. But poker, I lost a lot of money when I was very young and I never played it again.
Yeah, well, that would put you off.
But you've won.
That would definitely. Well, I've lost too. Any gambler who says that they're just a winner is a liar, as far as I'm concerned. When you're a gambler, you win and you lose. But I play poker more for fun than seriousness. I have played in some tournaments in Europe and I've done okay. But I would say for me, it's a hobby. And this is something that I've been doing. I've got a group of friends and we started playing cards 42 years ago, right? And every Wednesday, and we still do it. When I'm here, they all come. I've got a garden shed and it's set up as a poker room, our card room. And we go down there and we play and I cook them supper. And we've been doing it, the same group of guys, for 42 years. And now we've got a couple of the sons because a couple of them have moved away, etc. So, but we've carried it on for 42 years. And we play, there's usually 6 to 8 of us and we play, it's a tenner a head for a game. And so the most that you could possibly lose in a whole evening is £20. So, because we play 2 games. So, and it lasts all night. It's more of a social thing. We all get together, we chat about some of the people you will know that come. I mean, one of my old friends, and he started off, he said bridge. And again, over 40 years ago, I was asked to partner Ian Hislop, who's become a really old friend. And so we were bridge partners for a long time. And he comes and he likes a game of cards as well. So yeah, we all get together and it's just a nice social event that we do and we keep in contact. It's lovely.
Yeah, I always think of bridge as being the king of card games. They're wonderful.
No doubt about it. No doubt about it.
I haven't played it for many years, but when I was teaching back in the 60s, there were 2 of my friends, and we started off playing solo, and then we started playing bridge. We played in a few London clubs and things, but I was never good enough, and I didn't concentrate enough. I could never be certain that I knew what I was doing. If you had the same partner all the time, it was okay, but it could get very difficult. And when people started talking money, I always opted out. I never risked it.
Well, I've never played bridge for money.
No.
I've never played bridge for money. I play for fun on the whole, But going back to bridge bridge is one of those games that I would encourage anybody to get into, especially as you get older, funny enough, because it keeps the brain going and it really does, keep you focused. And, I've played with 90-year-olds who are on the button, right? And they put it down to playing bridge regularly.
Yes.
So
great game. I want to talk about your antique business and everything to do with antiques. But before we do that, there's an element that really stands out in your background that makes me chuckle. Coming from Blackpool, I spent a lot of time going to all the theatres and seeing the various kind of shows. And back in I'm going back to the 40s now and 50s, there were touring magic shows. And I saw some of the great magicians, people like Masculin, Dante. They had big touring shows doing the things. You are a magician. You were a member, are you still? I'm not sure, but you were a member of the Magic Circle.
I was an associate member of the Magic Circle. Magic has always been a passion of mine from a very early age. And, how I got into it was, as I said earlier, that we lived at the bottom of Muswell Hill. Well, one of the roads kind of opposite, Tommy Cooper lived in. And he and my father used to drink in the Victoria Stakes, which was a pub at the bottom of Muswell Hill. And my dad was a card sharp. He could manipulate cards very, very well. So the two of them had straight away, they had drinking and cards in common. So they used to meet up at the pub, and do things to each other with cards and show off and so on. But my dad passed on some of those skills to me as far as, shuffling a pack of cards, mixing cards up, and it came quite naturally. And I enjoyed it. I enjoyed when I did a trick, how the people's reaction were, it brought a smile to people's face. And I thought, this is really nice, if I can do this. But again, I just didn't really get that much into it until a bit later when I was going off traveling. And basically, I used it to travel around the whole of Europe and parts of the world. I could go anywhere. And I used to have this thing. I'd go into a restaurant and I would say, I was much younger then. I used to go into a restaurant and say to them, is the owner there? And if he was, I'd say, look, I'm a bit hungry. If I show you something, if you like it, I get a meal. If you don't, you tell me to sling my hook. And I always got a meal, And so I carried it on and it was, that's how it started. And then it became more and more. And I had a bistro in Cranbrook in Kent, a lovely market town. And I did magic evenings there where people would come and have a 3-course meal. And I would go around the tables doing close-up while they were having their in-between courses. And then I'd get another magician in and we do a little bit of a cabaret at the end of it. And I thoroughly enjoyed that as well. And then it just progressed, basically. I got job offers to do magic all over the place. I mean, I have to be honest, I like doing it, but I actually much prefer doing it to friends, and just when it's impromptu these days. On one of the road trips, on Antiques Road Trip, they've asked me to do a bit more magic, which I've been doing. And I've actually thoroughly enjoyed it because, I did one trip with Natasha Rashkin Sharp and, she's actually got a grandfather that was a magician. So to be doing tricks with her every day on a road trip was great, because she thoroughly enjoyed it. And, she was the ideal audience, as it were.
Did you do illusions or did you just do the close-up?
No, I mostly did close-up. I mean, that was my thing. I think the illusions, they're all well and good, but from a magic point of view, if I'm doing it under your nose and you're right there, you're going to be more dumbfounded than if you see it on a stage. And I was like into doing it right in front of people.
I find it absolutely fascinating. For a while, I presented the Young Magician of the Year from London's Magic Circle, from somewhere in the back of...
Yes, it's down the big tunnel by Charing Cross.
That's right. And it was, I thoroughly enjoyed that. And the only thing I learnt from it was that apparently there are only basically 5 tricks, that, everything is based on the same thing.
Yeah.
It's just different ways of presenting it.
Absolutely.
Is that the same with close-up?
No, I would say no, definitely not with close-up. I think that close-up is much more skillful because it's up to your dexterity, how you can manipulate things, whether it's cards, balls, coins, whatever it may be. There are obviously some very, very basic tricks, but they can be expanded on. Britain has some fantastic close-up magicians about. I mean, when you see them, it's a skill. The way that they manipulate cards, no, I think that close-up has a lot more than 5 basics.
Yes, I'm always very impressed. And I can remember one of the shows I saw when I can only have been about 8 or 9, and I think it was Masculin. And they did this trick which involved people appearing in different places where they shouldn't be. When they finished the trick to tremendous applause, they then turned everything around and the back cloth came in, which was an audience, and we were behind the set and he played it to the back cloth. And we saw people maneuvering around and doing clever things. Oh, that's how. Suddenly, no, that's not how it works. And no one was. It was equal.
Any the wiser.
Awful seeing the back of it. Oh, I don't know what. It's just so clever. And I directed Paul Daniels in pantomime once with lovely Debbie. And I mean, he was great fun to work with. I know how a couple of things that he did were done, but mostly you keep back. You don't try to investigate. Why would you want to? It spoils the magic.
I mean, there are always some people who want to know exactly how it's going on because that's how their mind works, right? Yeah. And you can pick up on those when you're doing a show, you can pick up very quickly on those people who, and you avoid them, basically. You just avoid them. You work to the people who are going to enjoy it and take it for what it is, entertainment. And the one thing about magic is it doesn't matter who you are, right? And what are the problems you have in the world? Once you are engaged with a magic trick, that's all you can think about. For that split second, for that moment, you're nowhere else. You're not thinking about anything else. So it's escapism as well. And we need that. We need to be entertained,
Absolutely. I agree with you 100%. Let's get on to your main job, as it were. You are an antiques dealer. You're an absolute expert. You've been on just about every antique show that there is on daytime television, some of the evening ones as well. Mentioning in passing, you're also a very witty, very funny man. I saw you on Would I Lie to You not so long ago, and you were hysterical.
Well, I mean, it's just happened to be the stories, Peter, I mean, my family wouldn't tell you that I'm hysterical at all, okay? But, I think I've always thought that laughter is the best form of medicine,
absolutely.
And I like to laugh. I like to be made to laugh. I like to make people laugh if I can. And, if a story needs a little embellishing, etc., to make it funny. Yeah. I mean, I think that it's really important to laugh. I mean, Would I Lie to You, though, was a very different kettle of fish. I think I obviously know the episode you're talking about. Well, one is they didn't believe the stories, which had actually happened. I mean, I used to train on the top of a car. I mean, I can't tell you anything else. That's what we did, and maybe other people didn't do that, but it seemed logical to us as a cheap way of training and getting used to the speed to do that. And, as for the shirt pull trick, well, Sean is my best friend, and we have done that trick, Peter. We have done it thousands and thousands and thousands of times all over the place, and it has never gone wrong. Never gone wrong. And the biggest audience that we have, right, because not only was it the theatre was full, there was another theatre down the road which was connected up too as well. So it was a big audience, plus we knew it was going to be going out. And it just went wrong. And I'm not going to say why it went wrong, but all I can say is on this, it wasn't my fault.
Let's get on to how I know how your interest in antiques started. You told me about that when you were 10 years old. How did it develop? How did it come on? And the antiques business, I mean, my wife used to collect lots of things and never things of great value. When we moved out of London, we moved to quite a big house and we needed furniture for that. We were buying big brown furniture that cost quite a lot of money. When we left that house, not all that long later, it was worth nothing. Absolutely nothing. And it's up and down all the time. How on earth do you sustain the profit levels in antiques? You being an auctioneer must see it fluctuating all the time.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I'll start with how we actually set up, because when I came back from Austria, my wife lived in a beautiful part of the countryside, Kent, and I loved it. I knew it as well. So we came down here and I didn't know what I was going to do because, all I was trained really to do was to kill from the army and to ski, I mean, I wasn't capable of doing much else, but I got a job through an acquaintance in London at Lloyd's. And so, I went up on the train from Kent to Staplehurst to London every day. and went to the office and was told what to do, this, that, and the other. After about 10 days, I came home. I said to my wife, I don't think I could do this. Going to London every day, I can see people who've been doing it for 30 years. This would drive me crazy. I'd rather shoot myself now than to have to do this every day. It seemed like I didn't want to do this. So anyway, after 2 weeks, I quit. Basically, I quit and I came home and I said to Sue, look, we live in a beautiful part of the countryside. Why can't we try and make a living where we live? It would be just great. So what we did was I said to Sue, you write down on a piece of paper all your interests or where you think we can make a living. Antiques was both on our pieces of paper. And that was our decision. We decided that we were going to learn more and we started buying a little bit. We were only selling from the kitchen table to start with to people that we knew, friends, etc. And then it built and it built up. And then, we were selling more and more. And we decided that we would invest in a shop, which we did. Basically, from shops, it went to antique centers and, and we did antique fairs. And then I saw a gap in the market for an auction house about 30 years ago in our town. And because there was an auctioneer there, but he was moving. So I decided that maybe I could start up here. And that's what I did 30 years ago with Bentley's. And I've been there ever since. So you were quite right when you say the fluctuation in antiques has changed. I mean, in the years, it's been like over 40 years now that I've been in the business. And you were right about brown furniture because, I used to tell people, you'll never go wrong. You buy an antique, you'll always be able to sell it at a profit because I believed it. Yeah. That's what I believed. Jesus, I didn't have a clue what was going to come. Now that brown furniture has come down so much, which I still don't understand because, it's cheaper to buy a Georgian chair than it is to buy something from IKEA. Yes. So, and the quality of it. So I think it will change, whether it's going to be in my lifetime or not. But what's happened is the antiques market has changed. So it's gone to other things now. So they're selling a lot of, porcelain, gold, silver. I mean, gold and silver are extremely high at the moment. Jewelry as well. People are investing in other things now. Yes. It's not safe. If you put it in the bank, it's not a lot of money. So people who are looking to have something nice, paintings, all sorts of other things now are being looked at. Classic cars is another very, very popular area at the moment. Classic cars are going up in price because people don't know where to invest their money. And antiques is a good, I've always said it's a good thing. And I still think it's a good thing. Brown furniture, okay, that isn't an area which has risen, but I think it will come back. It has to come back. I mean, where do people put their clothes now? Do they put them on the floor?
But it's the size of houses that people live in generally now, and the types of houses that people live in tend not to require the kind of furniture that used to be necessary. The thing that you needed to complete the room, it doesn't matter anymore. So many rooms are just boxes, which are, I'm not being critical of them. They're functional.
That's the way we live now.
But what do you need? That really dictates how well things will do at auction, I suppose.
Absolutely. And I mean, in the old days, you used to see a whole variety at the auction rooms. You used to see young people and old people, it was a big variety, but you very rarely see young people at an auction room these days. No. It's very, very rare because they don't stay in the same place that long. They have smaller places, as you've mentioned. There's, country houses now, are being divided up into apartments and people don't need as much. And we're moving away from big possessions as well, I think.
The trouble, I suppose, with obviously with the large pieces of furniture, people don't have that. Most people they don't buy wardrobes anymore. They don't buy dressers anymore. And in fact, if I'm watching something like Escape to the Country or whatever, the number of times you see people going into a room saying, oh, this is a nice space, but you couldn't put furniture in it. You put a bed in it, but where are you going to put your chest of drawers? People don't have chests of drawers anymore. It is rather weird. And no wonder you make money on it. You buy a nice Georgian piece for an awful lot of money 30 years ago, and it's worth £50 now, if that.
Peter, this house is full of pieces that I have paid way over the top for. Every time I look around and see a piece of thing, I've got a beautiful Georgian bow-fronted chest of drawers in there, which I have had for, I don't know, over 30 years, which I paid £1,200 for. And if I could get £200 for now, I'd be lucky.
Yes.
It's ridiculous.
And often what we're looking at, things that were made with such care and precision many, many years ago, And that is worth nothing. The skill is worth nothing now.
Absolutely. I mean, you're quite right. I mean, you know, the labor of love that goes into things, just isn't there. I mean, I still think that there are furniture makers, craftsmen in all spheres of life, in all categories, furniture, art, etc. Some of them, their work, it will be the antiques of the future. Some of the designer furniture that you see now, the 20th century modern items, fetch huge amounts of money. Taste change. And I think we're going through a big spell at the moment of changing taste at the moment.
Raj, what has been your proudest, most successful moment in antiques?
Well, this isn't in monetary terms at all, because I look at things that I've bought, which as antique dealers, antique experts, we are very lucky to be able to see things that we can not necessarily afford, but we can hold, we can look at. But there is something that does stand out that I have actually bought and sold, and that was the Lord Nelson's will.
Wow. Now that is something.
Yes, I know. Quite stunning. It's something that I always wish that I hadn't sold, only because it's a piece of British history that is, I mean, he had actually more than one will, but not huge amounts, but this was one of them. And I bought it on a series called Four Rooms.
I remember the series. I don't remember that particular one, but yes, you were very prominent.
Yeah, which I bought it on that. And as soon as I owned this in my hands, it's only going to be for a short time, because I knew I was going to sell it on, but to hold it and to have it for a short time I actually felt that I had a piece of English history there, and it meant something. And I've got a big connection not a big connection. I've had these strands to do with Nelson, because when I was at school at Highgate, the caretaker was ex-Navy, and he'd been stationed on Victory while he was at Portsmouth for a while. And I had a school project to do, and it was on the Victory. And so, there was this, I'd always had this lingering memory of Nelson and the Victory. And one of my passions is going to Menorca, the island of Menorca.
Yes.
And of course, Nelson is very, very closely associated with the island of Menorca. So it all led to me buying this will. And so it was a nice thing to buy. It was a lovely thing. And if I had had the money then that but I was a dealer, so I had to sell it on, I would have definitely kept it. And it would have been one of the things I would have been and there's another sporting thing which I sold on as well, which I didn't regret it, which was Muhammad Ali's army boots signed by him, which were brought onto the show by his daughter. And, it was just, he's one of my all-time heroes, Muhammad Ali. I've done lots of pieces on him. I've just done a piece on the Antiques Roadshow that was connected to Muhammad Ali. And whenever I talk about him or read stories about him, again, if I could have ever met somebody, how they say, if you had a dinner party, who would you invite, right? Well, Muhammad Ali would be at the top of my list. Okay.
What a wonderful choice. Can you remember? Well, I'm sure you can remember. What did you pay for them?
I can't remember exactly, but it was over £10,000, I believe.
Oh, crikey. And Four Rooms was a show where you use your own money.
Absolutely, yeah. Except I was using other people's money. They didn't know that.
Yeah. It's a bit like people who go into production in the theatre and the films and things. You don't use your own money.
No. Four Rooms was an interesting program. It was a very interesting concept. It won lots of awards as well.
Yes.
And I'm amazed that it's not still on. But I got to, again, there were two really different types of sellers on that show. There were the ones that just thought they were greedy, to be honest. They just wanted way more than anything was worth. And there were the people that were very reasonable and knew that you had to make a profit and would negotiate with you.
Yeah.
But I found it fascinating. It was fascinating because I could spend years going around, going to auctions, looking for some of the things that I was being offered right in front of me. To have them come in front of me and say, do you want to buy this? Was fantastic. I found it great, but there weren't that many antiques experts on that show. They were all from different walks of life, a lot of them, so I was able to pick up on the antique stuff quite a lot, which was good for me.
Raj, it's been an absolute pleasure. We haven't had enough time really to be able to talk about your charity work, which I know has been quite considerable. You were the founder member of the Tommy Club, and that presumably is to do with soldiers.
Yeah. Absolutely. And Antiques Roadshow, of course, one of the honors, of course, to be on the Antiques Roadshow, the first, I was the first Asian antiques expert on the BBC, which was an honor as well. Yeah. But to be asked after doing the other shows onto Antiques Roadshow is the biggest accolade I could ever have imagined. And whenever it comes, hopefully I'm going to die a happy man because, it's been fantastic.
Well, you've been a wonderful asset to those programs. I love watching you, and it's been a real pleasure talking to you. Raj Bisram, thanks very much.
It's been a pleasure. Thank you, Peter.
Raj is such a fascinating man, and I hope you enjoyed our chat. Plenty more wonderful future guests on the Peter Purves Podcast. They include Wendy Padbury, Peter Duncan, Toby Haydoke, Mark Benton and Bonnie Langford, to name just a few. And there will be a Christmas special bonus. I made an audio diary of the ups and downs of a small touring company of which Colin and I were part. Just a little insight, warts and all, of our production of Charles Dickens' A Christmas Carol, a radio play live on stage. If you can, please subscribe, rate or comment. Everything helps to build the Peter Purves Podcast community. Until then, adieu.